Our topic today is Holy Mother's life as an ideal for the modern world. In April 1923, during the dedication ceremonies of Holy Mother's temple in the village of Jairambati, there was a grand celebration. Swami Saradananda had put his heart and soul into seeing through the construction of the temple at Mother's birthplace, and also organizing the celebration for the dedication. As the festivities were going on in full swing, a village woman was seen going through the crowd exclaiming, "All this could have been mine. All this could have been mine. My father refused to marry me to that crazy man. If he had married me to him, all this would have been mine." The devotees attending the function there were, of course, amused. I heard this story from Swami Satprakashananda, who was there himself. To this woman, Sarada Devi was no different from her. And if she had been married to Ramakrishna, all this honor, she thought, would have been given to her. In fact, during Holy Mother's lifetime, many of her fellow villagers in Jairambati could not understand what all the fuss was about. They could not understand Ramakrishna, what to speak of Sarada Devi. During Ramakrishna's lifetime, they referred to him simply as the mad son-in-law. So they thought, why were people coming from far-off places to see their Sarada? What was so special about her? And why was this temple built to her after her passing away? We find in the Bible that when Jesus came to teach in his hometown, people would not pay any attention to him. They just said to one another, "Isn't this the carpenter's son?" This is not to say that none of the villagers saw something of her greatness. She had, in fact, one neighbor, Banu Pishi, or Aunt Banu, who adored Holy Mother and Ramakrishna from the very beginning. In fact, she regarded Ramakrishna as her Ishta, her chosen deity, Krishna. When Holy Mother was in her teens, she would sometimes take refuge at Banu Pishi's house for consolation when other villagers taunted her about her so-called mad husband. And Banu Pishi remained devoted to Holy Mother throughout her life. In fact, I believe she passed away just a month or two before Holy Mother did. Most of the villagers were mystified, though. One day a villager asked Mother, "How many people come to see you, even from far-off places, but we are not able to understand you? Why is that?" Mother replied, "What does it matter? You are my friends, my playmates." Another man, an old watchman named Ambikacharan Bhagdi, once told Mother, "People call you Devi, Bhagavati, but I don't understand anything." Mother replied, "There is no necessity for you to understand anything. You are my brother Ambika, and I am your sister Sarada." Actually, the villagers of Jairambati could not see anything special in Holy Mother because she did not want them to. She wanted to remain hidden and wanted to live with them as one of them. She was like a cat covered by ashes, as Ramakrishna once described her. And for this very reason, her life is often difficult to understand. It is only when we take her life as an ideal to follow that we begin to realize how great she really was. Holy Mother's motherliness and compassion are usually mentioned as the hallmarks of her greatness, and rightly so. But I believe that there is something more that is behind these qualities in her that makes them so much more outstanding than they are in other people. To me, the secret of her greatness is her absolute desirelessness, her equanimity, her detachment, and her egolessness. These qualities, I believe, are what make her motherliness and compassion so divine. First, we'll look at her absolute desirelessness and renunciation. For us, the search for happiness is our all in all. It seems to consume our whole life. The poet Hafiz says, "There is not a waking moment that you are not trying to savor what you have or get closer to what will bring you pleasure." Being so preoccupied as we are with needing to be satisfied, it seems we would be better at it by now. That happiness would be the norm and not a rare event. The problem is we are continually searching for happiness outside of us, in people, places, and things that we think will give us happiness. And we're so wrong. Hafiz continues, "We must, moreover, be the very fountainhead of all dance, laughter, and eloquence." So we must be it ourselves. We must be that happiness and joy. And the only way to be it is to give up the search for pleasure and happiness outside. Turn to God within and find our joy there. Moreover, then we will be able to give it to others. In Akshay Chaitanya's book, A Premananda Prema Katha, it is said, Holy Mother gave one of her disciples the Gerawa cloth with her own hands, and he then went to Kashi. Baburam Maharaj, the Swami Premananda, was then staying at Kashi. One of the sadhus there said to this disciple, "Mother herself is not a sannyasi, so how could she give you sannyas?" Baburam Maharaj heard this remark and immediately went there and said, in an agitated voice, "If you can't recognize Mother's giving of the ochre cloth as sannyas, then I don't accept your version of sannyas." That is to say, Holy Mother was the Divine Mother herself. Who is there more qualified to give sannyas? In fact, Holy Mother never took formal vows of sannyas, yet there is not any part of her life that is not illumined with her burning renunciation. The beauty of it is that she made her renunciation look so simple, so natural, but this is why it is often overlooked. Even Akshay Chaitanya, who told the story above, mentions elsewhere that Sri Ramakrishna's life was predominantly an ideal for monastics, while Holy Mother's life was predominantly an ideal for householders. But Holy Mother herself made much of Ramakrishna's renunciation and even took it as the ideal. Once someone praised Ramakrishna's message of the harmony of religions to her, and she replied, "My child, what you say about the harmony of religions is true, but it never seemed to me that he had practiced different religions with any definite motive of preaching the harmony of religions. Day and night he remained overwhelmed with the ecstatic thought of joy. He enjoyed the sport of the divine by practicing spiritual disciplines, following the paths of the Vaishnavas, Christians, Muslims, and the rest. But it seems to me, my child, that the special feature of the Master's life is his renunciation. Has anyone ever seen such renunciation?" Sri Ramakrishna, in turn, also praised Sarada Devi's absolute purity and desirelessness. For example, when Sri Ramakrishna refused Lakshmi Narayana's offer of 10,000 rupees, it was proposed that Holy Mother take it instead. But in keeping with her vow to be a helpmate in his mission, she also refused it, saying that her acceptance would be equivalent to Ramakrishna's acceptance. This is a more obvious aspect of her desirelessness. But But it is when we look at other aspects of her life that we really begin to understand what is meant by her desirelessness and renunciation. Besides money and sense pleasures, the greatest traps for human beings are the desire for name and fame, the desire for honor, and the desire for power. In order to understand what Holy Mother renounced, let us look at what she had. Even before Ramakrishna's passing away, his name began to spread all over the world, especially in India, and he was held in high regard. Even the well-known Saint Pavari Baba of Ghazipur kept a photo of Ramakrishna in his cave during the Master's lifetime. And again, during the Master's lifetime in London, the renowned scholar and Indologist Max Muller became fascinated simply by hearing about Ramakrishna's life, and he immediately wanted to write a book about him. Then after Swami Vivekananda's success at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago, Ramakrishna's name spread even more. With all this, Holy Mother could have easily have remained in the foreground and have been at the center of an international religious movement. She could have been adored and honored by millions in her lifetime all over the world. Instead, she preferred to spend most of her time in a remote village of India, cooking and cleaning, wearing simple clothes, and living a simple life in a mud hut. Swami Gambhirananda gives us a glimpse of her daily life in Jairambati. He said, at Jairambati, she tirelessly went through her daily routine, looking to the comforts of the devotees, dressing vegetables in the morning for about 2 hours, taking out supplies for the kitchen, arranging for the worship of the Master, and then worshiping him with her own hands, distributing the prasad, making at least 100 betel rolls, kneading flour and preparing the chapatis and luchis, boiling milk, cleaning lamps, and such other works followed one another without intermission and without anybody else's help, as if they were her duty alone. It is no wonder then that the other villagers of Jairambati took her to be one of them. On the surface, her life seemed hardly different from any of them. Now, why did she live such a simple and ordinary life? Perhaps one reason was that she was setting an example that is sorely needed in these days of consumerism, greed, frustration, and power politics. She was showing people how to live a simple, ordinary life, and how to be happy living a simple, ordinary life, while keeping the mind on God. She was showing us, as Hafiz says, how to be that joy without any external pleasure. Again, when Swami Vivekananda came back to India from the West and started the Ramakrishna mission, Holy Mother not only had every opportunity then to become the head of this fledgling movement, or even just exert a powerful influence over it, she also had every right. Swamiji himself worshipped her, and not just as his guru's wife or as his guru, but as the Divine Mother herself. This is how he regarded her. Later, as the general public in India began reading and hearing about Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, they also slowly came to know about Holy Mother. Naturally, then, people began to come to her, especially during her visits to Calcutta, and they came to her not out of curiosity, but rather to worship her. But we should note that the disciples of Ramakrishna did not publicize her. Perhaps this was at her request. Swami Satprakashananda used to say that Holy Mother's photographs were not available for sale to the public at all in those days. they were only given to known devotees. Swami Saprakasananda said that he himself received a photo of Holy Mother from Swami Premananda. Moreover, the other disciples of the Master also did not speak about her except to known devotees. For the most part, she was kept hidden from the general public until her birth centenary in 1953. But still, during her lifetime, people would gradually hear about her from others and would come to her. And it is not that she never guided the monastic order. Sometimes her judgments were sought in important matters, and then her word was taken as final. Yet she still preferred to remain in the background. One example can be given here. After Swami Vivekananda's passing away, one of his disciples who lived at the Advaita ashrama in Mayavati had doubts about the path of Advaita, it is non-dualism. As the ashram was dedicated solely to this path, he wrote to Holy Mother about his doubts. Her reply, written from Jairambati, continues to be of great importance to the Ramakrishna order and to the Advaita ashrama. She wrote, "He who was our guru," that she meant Ramakrishna, "he was an Advaitist. You are all disciples of that guru, so you are also Advaitists. I can firmly say you are all surely Advaitavadis." Now, someone with only a casual acquaintance with Holy Mother's life might wonder how such an important issue with important consequences for the future of the order could be settled once and for all by a village woman. But it was. She had the knowledge and she had the realization, and all the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna knew it. Yet even in her knowledge and realization, we find proof of her desirelessness. As Swami Vivekananda once said, "Knowledge is power. When you get knowledge, you get power." Here, by knowledge, Swamiji was referring to spiritual knowledge, but in reality, this can apply to any kind of knowledge. As we have seen over and over again, the power and arrogance that can come from knowledge can be used for great harm. According to Ramakrishna, Holy Mother was Saraswati herself, the giver of knowledge. As he said, she is Sarada, Saraswati. She has come to impart knowledge. She is the communicator of knowledge. She is full of the rarest wisdom. So Holy Mother had the highest knowledge, and she had the highest power, but her knowledge and power were used only for the good of others. In fact, she never had a thought for herself. Her thoughts were only for the welfare of others. In her instructions to her monastic disciples, she also emphasized that when the welfare of another is at stake, one should give up one's selfish interests. According to Gopesh Maharaj, Swami Saradeshananda, who was one of her attendants, Holy Mother would often mention a certain incident in Ramakrishna's life to teach them this point. Holy Mother said, "The Master was one day returning home from the direction of the Bhutta Canal in Kamarpukur. It had just rained." This was not when he was a child, but later in life, when he was visiting Kamarpukur. "It had just rained. As a stream of water was pouring into the pond, a magarfish was washed ashore, and it was now gasping for breath, being on dry land. The Master, who was kindness and sympathy personified, was very much pained to see the suffering of the fish. He at once picked it up and put it into the pond. And oh, how happy the fish was getting back into the water. The Master, too, was filled with joy, seeing it sporting in the water. His nephew Hridai was coming behind him. When he heard from the master about this incident, he was very sorry, and he said to the master, "Uncle, what did you do? How could you put such a fish, so delicious to eat, back in the pond?" The master simply laughed at this remark. The thought of the satisfaction of his own palate never crossed his mind. Then the mother said, "One cannot make another happy unless one gives up one's own selfish enjoyments. The worth of a person's life is to be measured by the extent of joy one has been able to give to others." Then there was Mother's detachment and equanimity. Now, what do we mean by detachment and equanimity? By detachment here, I don't mean indifference. There is a relationship between detachment and equanimity, just as there is between desirelessness and renunciation. When one develops true desirelessness, then one truly renounces. Similarly, when one attains detachment, one attains equanimity. Again, true renunciation itself gives one detachment and equanimity. For as long as the mind desires even the least little thing, there is no equanimity. The mind is always agitated. When the waves of desire in the mind stop, then the mind becomes calm. Then one can attain equanimity. A Christian monk, Isaac of Acre, once told the following story. One day, an aspirant came to the ascetic and asked to be his disciple. The ascetic inquired, "My son, your purpose is admirable, but do you possess equanimity or not?" The aspirant replied, "Well, sir, I feel satisfaction at praise and pain at insult, but I am not revengeful and I bear no grudge." Then the ascetic said, "My son, go back to your home. For as long as you have no equanimity and can still feel the sting of insult, you have not attained to the state where you can connect your thoughts with God." Fortunately, most spiritual teachers are not so strict. Yet this story shows how important the attainment of equanimity is for our spiritual life. Krishna says in the Gita, "Samatvam yoga uchyate." Equanimity is said to be yoga. And in various places in the Gita, Krishna describes this state. For instance, he says, "Such a person remains even-minded in success and failure, in sorrow and happiness, and in honor and in dishonor. Such a person is free from desires and has gone beyond attachment, fear, and anger. Such a person neither welcomes nor rejects anything, whether good or bad. Such a person is equally disposed towards the friend and the foe, and his senses are fully under control." This is undoubtedly the state that the ascetic had in mind. Again, according to Krishna, attachment, sangha, is the first step in a person's downfall. Attachments manifest on different levels, and all of them are deep-rooted. First, there is the physical level. Well, no one needs to be told about our attachment to the body. But then we also have attachments outside us in the form of people, places, and things that we associate with the body. Our loved ones, our home, our work, and so forth. Then there is the mental level. We have attachments to our opinions and our way of thinking. There is still another level, the level of the ego, but this we shall discuss a little later. After Ramakrishna's passing away, Holy Mother became totally detached from this world. Gopesh Maharaj described the difference between this period of her life with the later period. In the early days, he said, after the passing away of the Master, Holy Mother would often be in samadhi. Then her body would be like an inert object. Golap Ma and Yogan Ma would move her body as one would a portrait from one place to another. She would have no sense of her body. The devotees would come, make pranams to her, offer money, clothes, fruits, etc. at her feet, but she remained unmindful of all these things. Her companions and attendants would take care of these things. Other people would use them when needed, but she would never inquire about them. But after her niece Radhu was born, then, at Ramakrishna's command, Mother's mind came down to the normal plane. She started playing the role of a householder and took up the responsibilities of her family. Thus, as Gopesh Maharaj says, she experienced the misery and suffering of a family life. According to one of her relatives, before the arrival of Radhu, the mother would look like a veritable goddess, and one would hesitate to approach her. Yet even in her later life, when she was involved with her family, she retained a detached spirit with respect to everything around her. Gopesh Maharaj wrote, "Though the mother lived day and night amidst the various activities of her household and was as outwardly engrossed as any one of the other inmates in the work and responsibilities of the home, she would remain completely unattached in her heart. The household was, in her view, the master's. One had to remain in it, playing the part one was allotted. As Mother said, good and bad, joy and sorrow came and passed off according to one's karma. Without getting disturbed in mind by thinking about them, one should keep one's devotion to God steady and bear everything that came with patience. One should shake off the attachment for worldly objects as the ducklings shake off water from their bodies." Gopesh Maharaj said these teachings were always conveyed by the mother's instruction, behavior, and actions. Mother often reminded her attendants at Jairambati about the previously wealthy villagers of Kamarpukur, such as the Yugis, the Pines, and the Lahas, who in later days had almost nothing. Gopesh Maharaj said the mother would mention them so that, realizing the transitoriness of worldly possessions, her sons may be saved from their snares. If one, she said, could always keep in mind that such things as wealth vanish like a dream, one can develop detachment in one's mind. Again, as we have said, Mother herself was totally detached from money. We have already mentioned that she would not even look at the offerings people gave her in her earlier days. But even in her later days, when she was the mistress of a large household at Jairambati, she never took any interest in the money that was given to her or sent to her by mail. Whatever money was received, she picked up and put in a box without counting it. And whatever was needed for purchases was taken out of the box without counting it. There was no calculation of receipts and expenditures at all. In the rare instances when she herself purchased something from someone coming to the house, she would just hand them some money and let them take from it what they thought was the fair price of the article. In 1909, Holy Mother's brothers, with whom she was living then in Jairambati, decided to divide up the family property, giving each brother a share. Now it's only the brothers who get a share. The sister, no share. The sister has to live with one or another of them. Now, As is not uncommon in such events, the brothers got into terrible arguments over this, and eventually Swami Sardananda had to come from Calcutta to help arbitrate this division. Swami Gombarananda said, relying fully on Swami Sardananda's judgments and direction, the mother kept her mind absolutely above these worldly turmoils. Drawing attention to this equipoise of the mother, based as it was on spiritual insight, Swami Sardananda said to a brahmachari, maybe it was Swami Gombarananda himself, he said, "You have seen us often enough, how we flare up at seeing our slightest wish disregarded. But look at the mother. What a hell her brothers are creating, and yet how calm and collected she is all the times." When Holy Mother was asked by another one of the arbiters where she would live and with whom, she simply replied, "Rats bore holes and snakes live therein." Rats bore holes and snakes live therein. However, as her answer was not enough to settle the issue, they allotted her a house on the property of one of the brothers. It is true that for many years, Mother had a strong attachment to her niece Radu. But her biographies make it clear that she deliberately took on this attachment to keep her mind in the world. And moreover, she did this at Ramakrishna's command. When her mind was continually soaring in high spiritual states, Ramakrishna appeared to her in a vision and told her to hold on to Radu, to use her as a support in this world to keep her mind down. But right before Holy Mother passed away, when she no longer wanted that support, she asked Radu to be sent away. Many of the monks and devotees could also see there was tremendous power hidden behind Holy Mother's motherly love and attachment for the devotees. For instance, before Swami Nikalananda became a monk, Swami Premananda sent him for initiation to Holy Mother at Jairambati. While returning to Calcutta, he was accompanying Gauri-Ma, a woman disciple of Ramakrishna. Holy Mother again and again implored Swami Nikalananda to look after Gauri-Ma on the way back. But Gauri-Ma insisted that Mother should not worry about them. Swami Nikalananda wrote, "The louder Gauri-Ma roared, the more humbly the Mother prayed to God for us. I watched the scene and said to myself, here is a woman who has not a millionth part of the Mother's power and is bubbling over. And there is Holy Mother, a veritable dynamo of power, acting like an ordinary mother and restraining it all." When Swami Nikalananda returned to Bellarmat, Swami Premananda asked him about the Mother. Swami Nikalananda says, "I told him that she acted like any ordinary mother, eager to feed us and look after our comforts." With a beaming face, Swami Premananda said that was the Mother's greatness, and that here was a rare instance of a person who had conserved tremendous spiritual energy and at the same time appeared utterly tranquil. Then there was Mother's absolute egolessness. Our basic primal attachment is to our identity, our ego. This goes deeper than the physical and mental levels. We can hardly dream of giving up our identity. And in fact, all our other attachments, physical and mental, are really the ego's extension. We have attachment to the body because we think it is our body. Our attachment to our loved ones is because they are our loved ones. They are related to us in one way or another. Our attachment to places is because we have invested so much of our ego in those places. and the same with our work and our opinions. Regarding Holy Mother's lack of ego, a devotee once observed, "A human being is full of ego. But every day we saw hundreds of people prostrating before the Mother and calling her the Mother of the universe. Had she been a mere human being, she would have been puffed up with pride. Has a human being the power to digest so much honor?" Just as Holy Mother was completely unaffected by the worship of the devotees, so also she was unaffected by the pettiness of her relatives. This was possible because she transcended all ego sense. She herself instructed one of her disciples in this regard. Sachin Maharaj, Swami Chinmayananda, had been convicted in the Manaktola bomb case. He had been a freedom fighter before he joined the order. But he was under the active surveillance of the police the rest of his life. Being vexed, he came to the Mother for comfort, and she said, "Live like a leaf tossed about the wind. Tossed about by the wind. Do not have any individuality. Then all your difficulties will vanish." Later, Sachin said, "The police continued to trouble me, but I was completely indifferent. None of their doings would affect my mind. I would hear and see all their talk and actions, but there would be no reaction." Thus, Holy Mother not only had this egoless state herself, but she could also give it to others. In Holy Mother's case, however, this was not simply a lack of ego. Rather, her ego was replaced by the divine. The vacuum that was left from the absence of the ego was filled in by the consciousness of the Divine Mother. And on rare occasions, now and then, this became apparent. One amazing manifestation of her divinity took place when the Mother visited Bangalore on her pilgrimage in South India. This was in 1911. Swami Vishuddhananda, who was there at the time, wrote, "One day at about 2:30 or 3 p.m., we took Mother out for a ride in a carriage. There were not many visitors present at the Bangalore ashram at that time of the day. After visiting a nearby cave temple, when we returned to the ashram, it was found to be fully crowded. We said to the Mother, 'Mother, just see how many people have come for your darshan.' The Mother got down from the carriage, and seeing her, that mass of people saluted her and prostrated themselves on the ground, as is the custom in South India. Then Mother entered into ecstasy immediately and remained standing in the Vairabhaya pose, that is, holding her hands in the gestures of bestowing boons and fearlessness. She then lost external consciousness. I was afraid that she would fall down, but that day she filled the hearts of all with endless joy. After she came back to normal consciousness, the visitors went away. In that brief period of time, she lifted the hearts of all the devotees there to a higher plane of consciousness." So Holy Mother could manifest her divinity in public if the occasion demanded it, and if she felt the devotees would benefit from it. This happened in 1911, about nine years before she passed away. Holy Mother's life also shows how, when we give up the demands of our ego, then only can we truly connect with other people. Then only can we see ourselves in others. In Tales of a Magic Monastery, Father Theophane gives the following story. A monk became very drawn to a certain holy man, and he finally asked him, "Father, could you tell us something about yourself?" The holy man leaned back. "Myself?" There was a long pause. "My name used to be me, but now it's you." Again and again, we read in the reminiscences of Holy Mother about how she was just like a mother. Well, if she was just like any other mother, how is it that other mothers were not worshipped like her? Yes, as Swami Nikolananda said, she acted just like any other mother. Yet he knew there was more to it than that. It was her total lack of identity with herself and her total identity with others that made her motherly quality so special, so divine. This was how she was able to connect with others so totally. In fact, she could connect with anyone of any station in life. Gopesh Maharaj wrote, "From sadhus of the highest spiritual eminence to people steeped in worldliness and entangled in all kinds of worldly situations, all came to her with their questions and problems. Among them were the erudite and the ignorant, men and women, the rich and the poor, the young and the old. The mother would listen to everyone with the same minute attention and would answer each one of them in a simple and straightforward way, so that each would be perfectly satisfied and all doubts would disappear. Knotty problems like the truths about Brahman, about spiritual practices, about household affairs, about conditions of the health of the body and the mind, would all be brought to her by seekers from various walks of life." Now, when Holy Mother was giving initiation to the devotees in South India, she did not use an interpreter, even though the South Indian languages are totally different from her native Bengali. It is said that she would give each person the mantra and then give him or her instructions for doing japa and meditation, and everyone could understand her, though she was speaking in Bengali. One young devotee told how her own mother, a South Indian, would have whole conversations with Holy Mother. They would be laughing and joking, yet neither knew each other's language. Somehow Mother could enter the minds of the devotees and understand them, and also enable them to understand her. Again, in Holy Mother's life, we often find that as soon as she met a person, she immediately knew his or her spiritual attitude and qualifications, though that person was totally ignorant of them. For example, when Swami Nikolananda was initiated, he had no thought of becoming a monk. He said, "At the time of initiation, I offered Mother the customary dakshina, the gift, to the Guru, when she said that she did not take any money from her monastic children. I thought that she mistook me for an inmate of Belar Mat because he had been sent by Swami Premananda. And therefore I corrected her, saying that I was a student and a householder. But she repeated once more, 'No, my child, you're a sadhu. You don't have to pay me anything, like a householder.' I thought she was simply mistaken and left the money on the ground near her feet. At that time, I had no idea of renouncing the world." In Holy Mother's conversations with her disciples, we also find many examples of her knowing things about the devotees without having been told. For example, one woman devotee, Kirudbala Roy, described an incident. When Holy Mother was staying at the Udbodhan house, Her niece Nalini was haggling with a woman who was selling blankets house to house. Holy Mother finally scolded Nalini for detaining the woman just to save a quarter of a rupee. Then she said, "Moreover, what do you want a blanket for? You have everything. Still you want to purchase one more blanket." Then Kurodbala said, then pointing at me, Holy Mother said, "It would rather be nice if you could give one blanket to my daughter. She possesses only one blanket, and she passes the winter days with this. Still, she does not ask for anyone for another blanket. She has perhaps never used more than 2 saris at a time throughout her life. In spite of this, she is quite happy. You don't see the bright side of others." Kurodbala said, "I was simply stupefied. I wondered how the mother was posted with so much information about me, although I never mentioned to her anything about my blanket or saris. How many times she made me understand that she was truly our mother." In fact, when Holy Mother was at Jairambati, whoever came to her felt that her whole attention was on him or her, exclusively. When she would feed the devotees in Jairambati, each one of them thought that Holy Mother loved him or her the most and gave him or her more attention than anyone else. Again, just by looking at someone, she could feel that person's pain or illness, even if that person himself did not know about it. And sometimes it was found that even a seemingly trivial thing she did or said would help someone overcome a great difficulty. We should remember that this attitude, that is, of being totally connected with others, came naturally to Holy Mother. She completely lost herself in others. Once she said, "Now and then I think if this body, instead of being such a small frame of bone and flesh, were a big one, how many people I could help." So, as we have seen, all of the above qualities of Holy Mother, her desirelessness, her renunciation, her detachment and equanimity, her total lack of identity with herself, and her absorption in others, all these contributed to her motherliness and compassion. But there was one more thing. Because all these qualities were innate in Holy Mother, she had divine sight. She had no desires, attachments, or ego to stand in her way as we do to veil the divine vision. One day she gave out the reason for her intense desire to help others. She said, do you know what I have seen once? I have seen that Thakur meaning Ramakrishna, Thakur alone has become all. Whatever direction I look, I see Thakur. Thakur has taken the form of the lame, the blind, and all. There is none but Thakur. So I see that it is all his creation, and it is he who exists in different forms. It is he, not the jivas, who has been suffering. That is why I have to save all those tormented souls. Whoever approaches me, it is like my helping him with his means. So Holy Mother was seeing God in all. She had the vision of Vijnani, as Ramakrishna called it. And basically, this is why her motherliness and compassion were on a totally different level from others. But we should remember, too, that this is the ideal that Ramakrishna asked all of us to reach. This was his idea of realization for the modern era. Motherliness and compassion are good, but we have to remember the level that Holy Mother took these qualities to, and also what was behind these qualities. She was the ideal we should look up to. In the 13th century, St. Thomas Aquinas wrote a masterpiece of theology entitled Summa Theologica. It was, and still is, considered one of the most important works of the Roman Catholic Church. Yet he never finished it. Near the end of his life, when one of his disciples was continually pressing him to finish it, he replied, "What I have seen," what he has seen in a divine vision, that is, "what I have seen makes everything that I wrote seem like mere dust and straw." Similarly, Holy Mother's vision of this world was completely different from ours. Once she said, when one attains true knowledge, God himself does not exist. One calls upon the Eternal Mother, and in the end, finds her in all creation. Everything then becomes one, and that is all. On the surface, Holy Mother's life of renunciation and dispassion may seem to be a difficult or perhaps even an impossible ideal by today's standards with its consumerist mentality. But in reality, if we look deeply at her life and meditate on it, we will gradually understand that all the glamour and glitz, all the wealth and possessions, the mad rush, turmoil, competitiveness of this modern world, they are nothing but dust and straw.